Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to episode 91 of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. Well, I'm your host, Jake Metzger, a guy who loves to listen to, that good old voice of Jim Croce in the morning that just gets me going. You can hear the cigarette off his breath as you hear the voice soothe you in the shower. And then, my co-host this week is the legend, as they call him. Some people out there call him Uncle, which just happen to be his nephews. And he loves listening to that cirrhosis? No. He loves listening to that. Oh, I know what he likes. He likes listening to some of that good old Mississippi John Hurt. Ladies and gentlemen, David Reed. David, how are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing pretty good.
For those who are just tuning in to this episode of the Snarp Fangle Podcast, we are burning the midnight oil here. It's been an incredibly busy day for myself and David, and we finally found the time. We found the time outside of our responsibilities to the universe to do a recording for you, audience. And if you have any suggestions and thoughts and ideas and inquiries, and what examples of Western media that has furthered our wonderful Western civilization, send them on over to snarpfangle@gmail.com. Or you can just text Jake if you just so happen to have the number. All right, David. We are here again. It is November, and I am very happy to be talking about things other than movies, although I'm sure that'll come up later. But we are here to talk about a very new, different thing. I mean, we've reviewed different albums before on the podcast. We've deep dived into a few albums in our time. But we decided this week to take a gander at specific songs around a certain theme, kind of combining a little bit of a peak analysis with our two films in a little bit of a pseudo, not really way. So, the theme, I don't know what I'm even going to call this. I was thinking about Snarp and the Midnight Fangle too, but I don't think that really suits what our direction is here. I think really, David, what we're talking about is this. 3 songs from David and 3 songs from Jake with different themes. And David's theme, David, what is your theme? 3 songs that did what? Or are what?
When you mentioned the idea of picking specific songs to analyze, I had been thinking a lot about, just because of, events in the news, political happenings.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about, Western civilization in general, the sort of beginnings of what made us as a culture and where we're going, kind of a thing. And that brought me back to what I would call my musical first love, which is classical music.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that brought me back to my musical first love, which was classical music. My initial, I play a lot of guitar now as far as when I play music, like for worship and whatnot, and just in music in general. But my initial musical experience was being taught how to play the piano when I was younger, and by my mother. And then she also ended up buying me a big old set of, like, a sort of anthology set of classical CDs of various composers and stuff. And so I was that was kind of my my introduction into the music world. And yeah, just thinking about Western civilization, I kind of wanted to kind of go way back with this to pieces that were very formative for me as a young person, as well as I think are important culturally as far as being
Seminal.
yes, being in the what you might call being in what you might call the Western canon.
Yes. Well, let's just dive right into it. You know what? I'm not going to reveal what mine are about. Let's just dive right into what yours is, because it's two different themes as we dive into this discussion. Yours is this, and all will be revealed in all due time for the next section of the podcast. But you got 3 songs to me, David. You sent them over to me. I was very surprised that I knew 2 of them, but not the first one. But what would you like to start with first? I mean, you gave me a YouTube playlist. I listened to it very loudly, is what you recommended to do. So I did that last night. Listened to them multiple times as well as today. And which one would you like to start with?
Let's see. We'll start with. Let's just do them in the order that I sent them to you in. So
Right.
I think we'll start off with. It is Ballad number 1 in G minor. By Frédéric Chopin.
Oh, that's how you pronounce it. Chopin.
Yeah, Chopin is so he was a Polish composer. Who he was a Polish composer, but ended up moving to France as a young man. And so he pretty much made his mark in France, but always considered himself a Pole.
Like you Poles do.
Yes. Well, he had a French father. I literally just looked this up not too long ago.
Yeah.
One of his parents was French.
Okay.
But like he grew up like as a child in Poland, and he considered himself to belong to the Polish nation. But anyway, as a young man, he moved to France and made his mark there, basically. And so he was a pianist, and he composed exclusively for the piano. I think he has a couple of pieces that aren't composed for piano, but other than that, all of his compositions are exclusively piano pieces. And the thing about Chopin is that not only was he very important in expanding the range, broadening the horizons of the instrument itself, he is also one of the first musical celebrities to live.
Really?
So, like...
Oh, by the way, before we go any further, if you're wondering if you want to take a gander at these songs, to take a listen for yourself, which is kind of required reading in a certain way, they're all in the description of this video, or the description of this podcast, I should say. So take a gander. You'll have my list and David's list if you want to follow along.
All right. So yeah, with that sort of background information about the composer out of the way, let's move on to the piece specifically. So like I said, it's Ballad number 1 in G minor. So what's interesting about this piece is it's called ballad, but like to our modern understanding of the term, we might think of a ballad as like an emotional, sort of like a soft, like tender, emotional song. But in the context of its historical usage, a ballad was actually a narrative work.
Hmm.
And which is interesting because there's no vocals in this. This is just a solo piano composition.
Yeah.
So, but the interesting thing about it is it almost has a narrative quality to it. Like, this piece expresses a range of different emotions, and it goes from one to the other and builds up and down and up and down. It almost has, the music itself almost tells you a story. Like, it's one of those, it reminds me of one of my favorite electronic albums that I've listened to. It's called Themes from Perdition City by the band Ulver.
Ooh, that's a good song.
So this album is subtitled Music to an Interior Film. So basically the idea behind that album was it's like a film soundtrack to a movie that doesn't actually exist. It's whatever movie that plays inside your head when you listen to it.
That's dope.
And this is kind of what I think of when I listen to this particular Chopin piece. It's telling a story, but the story is what you're imagining in your own head when you listen to it. One thing too, one more bit of background piece about information about this. So Chopin belongs to a period in classical music called the Romantic period. And Beethoven, I think, is kind of the most well-recognized composer of this period. And one thing about the Romantic period is that sort of, one thing about the Romantic period that kind of sets it apart from the earlier Baroque period is that music often has a very bombastic, expressive sound with lots of emotional range.
For a example of Baroque era, that would be Mozart, right?
No, that would be Bach.
Oh, that'd be Bach. Sorry, Bach. Yeah. And then Beethoven's the Romantic period, which was after that.
Yeah, Beethoven is kind of kicks off the Romantic period,
and then as well as
Chopin also belongs to that. And and this piece I think is definitely emblematic of that sort of idea of bombastic, expressive Romantic period music, because like he uses the entire dynamic range
of the piano
as well as the entire note range of the piano.
Yeah,
he goes from low to high, from soft to loud, loud to soft, high to low, and everything in between, spanning several different moods, from moody and reflective to sweet and tender to triumphant to bombastic and loud. It's like it's basically an emotional roller coaster.
It's a little something for everybody.
Some have theorized that this might have encapsulated his feelings on the failure of the Polish independence movement, which he was supportive of, not directly connected to, but he was supportive of. As I mentioned earlier, he always thought of Poland as his true home, despite living in France for his adult life.
Yeah. And you know what? It was funny because this is probably my favorite piece that you sent, is this first one. It's because I've heard the other two after this. I've heard, the other two we're going to talk about. And this is the one that's unfamiliar with me. But this is probably my favorite out of these three, because of the range, like you said. And I also like the way I would describe it is it's very powerful, and especially the finale of this piece, which it gets quiet and then and then it does this crazy finale like hit, and it goes on for I think about 40 seconds or even more than that, and it's really pretty, really beautiful, like bombastic, like you said. But there's also some, I don't know, Beethoven stuff always comes off to me as pure, but this comes off as sort of like a journey. Like, not saying that Beethoven stuff isn't, but the Chopin guy, Chopin, whatever, however you pronounce it, he had a weird French parent that named him a weird French name. I would describe it as it kind of commands you to pay attention to it in a certain way because of the emotional roller coaster like you described it as. And it's one heck of a listen. I think the version you have and that we'll link down there is about 9 minutes long. And the guy who plays it, dude, go. Dude, this guy has like such a gentle touch with the piano, but he also like, you could tell he's like a master at work. This Krystian Zimerman guy who performs it in this video. Super awesome. Very powerful. Kind of like the rest of the songs on this list, but this one just stands out to me as like, and again, just preface, I ain't no expert in music theory. I don't know a single thing about music theory. I don't know the difference between Bechtel test and the tempo. Okay? I'm very stupid and ignorant in that. I can learn, I'm willing to learn, but I just am not very knowledgeable in this area. So I can only analyze stuff from a certain perspective, and that's Jake. But it was very enlightening to listen to this because it's kind of like outside my wheelhouse. And I would encourage people to seek out classical music because of that very thing. It's very uncommon nowadays. You don't get a lot of people pioneering to listen to classical music. Like, classical music to them is going to be from the 60s or 50s or even the 40s. Like, they're not going to go out and listen to instrumental pieces for fun. But I would encourage you because it makes you appreciate art in a different way. And when you appreciate art outside of your wheelhouse, it makes you look at art in general with a better lens, I would say. But yeah, that was my thoughts on Ballad number 1. And dude, the guy who performs this, man, again, it's so, like, man, do you think you could perform this, David?
Right now, no.
Okay.
I've tried to learn this piece before.
There's so much to it.
I kind of gave up after a while because I was never like super into just being a pianist. Like, I always wanted to branch out and do different things musically, even though I started with piano. But at one point in time, that's all I was doing was just playing classical pieces. And so by the time I acquired the sheet music for this song, I was already my interest in that was kind of starting to wane. And this is like an expert level piece and required way more effort than I was willing to put into it at that time. And now I'm even rustier as far as technique goes than I was back then. So there's no way I'm playing it right now. So in fact, I'm not even entirely certain where I put the sheet music for this.
What, you know what? Looking at this song and of course the other stuff, like, it's interesting. The other stuff we're going to talk about is orchestra after this, but this is just with the piano.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
And it feels like an orchestra in itself.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is Chopin was a pianist himself, and that's what he composed for. And he was very instrumental in enhancing the range of piano music, broadening people's horizons for what they thought possible out of piano music, because this is pretty emblematic of his works in general. Is very requires very advanced technique in order to play it. And the thing too is, during this time period, the piano was kind of a new instrument.
Really?
Like, we think of the piano as being extremely old, but in the grand scheme of these things, the piano is actually kind of a new-ish instrument. For context, the piano did not exist during the lifetime of either Bach or Mozart.
Dang.
So anytime you hear anyone play any Bach or Mozart piece on a piano, which is pretty common for nowadays for certain pieces of theirs to be played on piano, that's not how they would have been performed during the actual lifetime of their composer. Basically, the only keyboard instruments that existed during the lifetimes of Bach and Mozart were the organ and the harpsichord and the clavichord, so the harpsichord, organ, self-explanatory. The clavichord is sort of like, almost like the prototype for the piano, but it's very different in how it works. So a piano works.
How do you spell the one you're explaining? Harpsichord?
Clavichord. So Clavichord, clavichord.
There it is. Yeah.
So the piano works by having strings under tension, and pressing the key causes a hammer to strike the string for that key and create the note.
This thing's ancient. So
the clavichord is a much more primitive instrument and would have less strings than there were keys. And essentially it would work very similar to a guitar almost. The hammer would come down and put pressure on the string, causing its vibrating length to be shorter, which would change what note it was.
Whoa.
So
it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures right now. It's basically, for those listening, it's a piano-looking device with a giant open area to the right, which is where the strings lead into, which is where the tension is held, I believe. And it also, a lot of examples I'm looking here on Google Images shows it has a lid you can put onto it. And it seems somewhat portable. There are many, obviously, very heavier versions of this and larger versions. But basically, it's like a piano with a bunch of stuff on the right side. Very open space on the right side.
Yeah, and so the thing about a clavichord is, one, it's a very soft-sounding instrument. You couldn't really play a large concert hall with a clavichord. It was more like a parlor instrument. And also because it depended on multiple notes depended on one string, there was a limit to how many notes you could play at one time. So then, of course, you have the harpsichord, which doesn't have the same problem as the clavichord in terms of being limited by the notes you can play, because it's one string per key now. But the thing about the clavichord is it works differently. So it actually, instead of a hammer falling on the string and dropping down, it basically, pressing a key causes a little quill to come down and pluck the string.
Oh, that's dope. And
So-
that's how you get that. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah, so if you ever hear a harpsichord, you'll hear that pluck string quality to it.
For those who want a great example of what a harpsichord sounds like, look up this. Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance. Track, Power Hungry Fool, as I believe is what it's called, which is Oliver's theme from that video game. And it's the one I showed you with the harpsichord, like, it's so good.
Yeah. Now the problem with
Yes, Power Hungry Fool, if those interested.
yeah, and the problem with the harpsichord though is that one, it wasn't very loud. Again, it was a quieter instrument, and two, it's the range of tones that you could produce from it were kind of limited. Like when you think of plucked strings nowadays, you might think of a guitar,
Yeah.
which is a very expressive instrument and can produce a wide range of tones depending on how you attack the string. With the harpsichord being entirely mechanical, your hand doesn't actually touch the string at all. With it being entirely mechanical, it's very limited in the way you can attack the string, which limits the kind of tones you can produce.
Well, also, I think it's kind of an issue with the size of a harpsichord and a clavichord, correct? Because these are very small spaces for the sound to actually travel and to make an impact, right? Versus an actual piano or even grand piano where there's so much reverb and room where things can get kind of bombastic.
Well, that's the thing too, is because these instruments were never designed to play large concert halls. They were designed as parlor instruments.
Small spaces.
So they were usually smaller. They had smaller keyboards with less range of notes that you could play from high to low. Nobody ever really thought to make like a harpsichord with the range of a modern piano because nobody ever thought to make a large harpsichord that you could play in a concert hall.
Yeah.
Just because
it wasn't really in demand at the time.
It just wasn't ideal for the purpose. So fast forward to the development of the piano, it basically was sort of the best of both worlds in terms of keyboard instruments. It allowed the range. It gave you the range, the volume, the different tones that you could produce, rivaling like a large pipe organ, but without taking up all the space of a large pipe organ, which meant that, any venue could just have one carted into their concert hall, even just for the night, like moving a piano is not fun, but it's possible. Moving a pipe organ doesn't happen.
Nope, doesn't happen.
They're permanently installed in the churches where they are. So this was kind of like the end all be all, like the ultimate evolution of keyboard instruments that people had been kind of progressing towards. And so when Chopin comes around, the piano is still kind of a new thing. It's not it hasn't been
around for 400 years.
Exactly. So when he came around and started really testing the limits,
tickling them ivories
of what you could do in terms of technique, in terms of dynamics, it was something that people hadn't really seen before.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and it makes me wonder about because by the time Beethoven and them were all doing stuff, the piano existed obviously, and it was utilized in these orchestral pieces. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that right? The piano was around during Beethoven, obviously.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
The piano was the piano was still kind of a new thing
because it's only
during
been around for
Beethoven's
what?
life too.
It's like what? How long has it been around? Like 1700s, 1600s, something like
I would
that.
say,
I mean, I have Google in front of me, but I don't know.
yeah, it's been a while, but like the piano, the origins of the piano date to the 1700s.
Dang, that is really recent. Like America hasn't even been around that long. We're just hitting our 250th birthday next year, so the piano's just a little older than it, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Because the cultural impact of the piano in general is insane. Like it's changed so much, and there's so many things surrounding and revolving around the piano itself. It's pretty cool when you think about it.
Yeah, piano is kind of one of those things that is truly a hallmark of Western music, and like without it, our musical landscape would be completely different. Completely different. And Chopin was just a very important step in terms of what can be done on a piano. I would say is the real brilliance of Chopin.
Do you think we should bring back the clavichord or the harpsichord?
I mean,
or should we do that as well as bring back the hurdy-gurdy?
I mean, there's definitely, like I said, there's definitely interest in.
Maybe the next Bad Bunny song should be in a clavichord.
In those two instruments, it's like a pop song's not going to be recorded on one, but like you'll find people playing pieces from the period on either of those two instruments. Like there's many. I haven't come across many clavichord recordings specifically, but I also never sought them out too much.
Yeah.
Most clavichord pieces are generally performed on piano, but a lot of pieces composed for harpsichord are still performed on harpsichord.
Well, it's kind of a unique sound.
Yeah,
you have to get out of specifically a harpsichord. It's really hard to replicate that sound on other instruments, I would imagine. Well, maybe one day we can bring back those in the hurdy-gurdy.
Maybe.
I feel like the hurdy-gurdy, its time has come. It's now time to bring back the hurdy-gurdy. So that's your first pick.
Yeah.
The version we listened to was performed by Krystian Zimerman, white guy. Very appropriate that he's playing a Chopin piece. You know what I mean?
You know,
I'm joking. Most of all this music, by the way, you know, I don't know, made by white people.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing bad. Nothing good, necessarily great about that either.
I mean, I would say there's plenty great about that.
Yeah.
It's like what we're talking about here is
Western civilization.
The music of Western civilization.
Yeah.
And
it's okay to be white, guys.
Yeah, Western civilization is built by white people.
Yeah.
Big whoop.
Yeah.
It's like you can't get away from that.
Can't get away from it, man.
Like any attempt to diversify the West, all that does is water down the West.
And, it kind of goes back to the conversation of, like, America, Like, we'll get into it when it comes to my turn, but with Western civilization in general, the West is best for a reason. Not because it's white, necessarily.
I mean, it's
a factor.
It's a factor for sure.
But it's the idea of Western civilization, I would say. And the implementation of Western civilization.
The West is best. The West is best for us.
Yes.
For Westerners.
Westerners, yes.
And but that's the thing is the reason why it's the best for us is because we're white.
True. Hey, you're not
wrong.
The
West was built by white people.
Yeah.
For white people.
And that's where I was getting to. It's okay to be proud of your heritage. Like, it's okay to be proud of, yeah, sure, whatever. If you're another race, yeah, you can be proud of that. But I think for all races, it doesn't matter. Like with the white people, let the white people be proud of their heritage, man. Be proud of the people that immigrated over here from Europe and made America, and made it great, and is keeping making it great, and as well as making great Western culture as well.
Yeah. So the thing about
So
the thing about
David's got something.
white people.
That is the thing.
The thing about white people
Whitest
is
kids you know.
So you anyway, so
Sorry, I'm trying to derail you.
You really did. I was gonna say something and I got thrown off.
How white are you?
So the West was built by white people for white people. And basically, you can't. The reason why Western countries value the things that they do is because of the people that make up those nations.
And their values.
Yeah, so the thing is, you can't, like, the values of Western nations aren't just like abstract principles that are just, that like are imbued into your soul the moment you set foot on the soil of a Western country. The reason why Western nations have the values that they do is because of the people that make up those nations. Nations aren't just imaginary lines drawn on a map.
Yeah.
Nations are
They mean something.
Magical soil that causes you to be of that nation the moment you step on it. And nations are the people that make up those nations. So, I mean, I don't want to say like white is right, but like it's
better
right.
than most.
It's right for us because that's who we are. That's our heritage.
Yeah. Like if you're in Japan, being Japanese, it's right for you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. Is I don't want to get super political.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying in terms of comparing cultures, there's a reason why us Americans say the West is the best. Is because in comparison to what's right for us versus what's right for you is better in our eyes because it works really well for the people who are over here. Like, for example, if we try to apply all of the history and all of the values cemented in, say, for the Japanese, for example, and that nation over here, it wouldn't work because the people are different inherently and they have different values inherently, which means it spans generations. So it's like, it's an interesting topic because I feel like, especially in modern day where we're at, it's a topic you cannot talk about. We kind of touched this a little bit on our our 2 anime wartime films where we had a discussion about Japan. You guys can go find the highlight on the YouTube channel, but it's where we had a discussion about Japan and kind of the, how did you describe it, David? The homogenation of culture over there and specifically made for the people who live there or something like that. I can't remember. I can't remember exactly what you said, but we had a discussion about it. It was really fascinating. And it's like one of those discussions where as we're talking about, I'm like, yeah, we're so canceled. we are so out of this, like any kind of bubble or box people try to put us in. Like it's a taboo topic. There's I would say it's considered a taboo topic, but it's a topic I think that should be discussed and openly and honestly. Because how else will we just figure out our differences and get along, Because basically what it boils down to is exactly what David said. It works because the people are the way they are, where they're at. And for example, I consider the West the best because I think our values are more important than anything else in the other parts of the world. Like the Judeo-Christian values, for example, the way we treat other people, example, the freedoms that we have, the Constitution, in fact. You can chime in and insert all sorts of politics and bad faith arguments into this kind of discussion. And yeah, your mind will naturally go there because of the current political climate we're in. But separate that and segregate it out of this discussion and looking at it from a perspective of comparing cultures and objectively looking at it, what values one brings to the table versus the other. And it's also important to emphasize, like David said, it works for the people who are Japanese in Japan, and it works for the people who are white in America, for example, or who are white in Poland, for example. So it's just an interesting concept of it's better and the West is the best. And it's just into discussion, I would say. West is the best. Let's be real.
I mean, obviously, other nations, other cultures want to live different ways,
which is totally fine.
And it kind of like flies in the face of modern thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Modern thinking says that everyone's exactly the same, and that these values that we have are just hypothetical values in the universe that anyone can just grab onto when they come over here.
Yeah.
And I think...
Well, I think...
as much as I would say, as much as I would, you know, as much as I want to be open to the idea that anyone can just come over here and live as an American, because just I'm an American, so that's my experience, so I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
As much as I would love the idea of just anyone could come over here from anywhere and just be an American, in practice, it doesn't really work that way. In practice, what happens is people come over here and they bring their home country with them.
Yeah, and their heritage.
And, you know, we're kind of unique among Western nations, because we're already kind of more ethnically diverse. Even when we were
just starting,
even when we were much more majority white than we are now, like we were, just because of the presence of certain immigrant groups that came over here, and also from various places, and also the presence of the Native Americans, we were already more ethnically diverse than Europe was.
Yeah.
So there was already going to be more racial tension over here than there was in Europe.
Yeah, when you get people with different heritage and cultures and try to half assimilate or fully assimilate to what America is, there are going to be problems. There's going to be clashes. There's going to be racial tension.
Yeah,
it just makes a lot of sense.
So where we arrived, I think, with before the sort of migration boom from the 60s onward, I mean, that was already a difficult enough journey.
Yeah.
And then finally in the 60s, they removed the racial quotas for immigration and opened the floodgates, basically. And what I've seen is America has become less America. It hasn't become a more diverse and exciting America. It's become less of an America. It's become less American.
Yeah.
It's
kind of
people have come over here and they've essentially set up like parallel societies.
Yep. And I think that, and I'm not saying, and before I say this, I'm not saying that you should take out those parallel societies, but what I am saying is those who fail to assimilate or integrate into American society as Americans specifically, you're kind of pushing away the cart and the horse in a different direction, but it will inevitably push through you if you try. In the sense of like, you live in America, you are an American, be an American. Like if I'm a guy, white dude, beardy, nerdy, American, go over to Japan and try to live like I do here, it's not going to work. I'm going to have to get comfortable with certain things over there and to get used to certain rules over there and certain cultural standards over there. Because if I'm choosing to live there the rest of my life, for example, I am just going to be pushing against a thing that is inevitably going to just run me over.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think there's limits to how much people can assimilate.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with, I'm not saying don't bring your pizza over here. You know, like if you're an Italian guy and you're making pizza, which was made in America, by the way, and you're going to make your pizza, make your pizza. I want that food from that culture. That sounds great. Share that with us. But it doesn't mean you gotta, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. Like the food's fine, but I'm trying to think of what
okay,
else.
this is the thing.
Yeah.
This is the thing.
This is a very interesting topic, by the way.
Culture is always downstream from the people in that make up the nation.
Yeah.
So like you can get a degree of assimilation, but for assimilation to work, there has to be a dominant culture for other groups to assimilate into.
Yes.
So we as Americans were sold the idea of the melting pot.
Yeah.
But unfortunately,
it's way more nuanced.
What we're getting is more of a chunky salad.
Chunky salad.
You know, and so it's
expound upon that.
So in a salad, you have distinct chunks of different things, and this is closer to what the modern ethnic and cultural landscape of the United States is. You have like different sort of chunks of various ethnicities that live in different areas and have their own culture, their own distinct way of doing things. And they just sort of, this chunk of this culture occupies this space, this chunk of this culture occupies this space, and so on and so forth. So what you have in America is not other cultures melting into the dominant culture. Mm-hmm. You have other cultures existing in fragments alongside the dominant culture. And if you keep going in that direction, what you get is the nation at some point ceases to be the nation that it was and turns into a different nation.
Huh.
Like, I'll give you an example. Mexico. So Mexico is the way it is because of the cultural dominance of mixed race people. So before the British came over here, the Spaniards colonized Central and South America and little bits of North America as well. And they ended up everywhere, but in Mexico specifically, they ended up mixing, the Spaniards who came over, mixing with the native population in large numbers. And pretty soon, what happened, these mixed race people began to outnumber those who were either purely native or purely Spaniards. And the culture and the nation became defined by this group of mixed race people. So when like modern Mexicans are descendants of cultural mixing, of racial and cultural mixing.
Huh.
So like Mexico is Mexico because of that unique heritage of native and Spaniard people mixing together. And eventually those mixed people became the dominant culture, the dominant people group in the nation, and that's why the nation of Mexico is the nation of Mexico and not something else.
Oh.
So there's only so much demographic change that can happen before a nation ceases to be what it was before and starts to become another nation. So that's the thing is, I don't want to, like, I don't have anything against, anyone from other races or other cultures or other nations, but it's like, I want America to remain America.
Yeah.
And no amount of, oh, America is for everybody, and America is just a set of abstract values that anyone can grab a hold of. America has magic soil that just because you happen to pop out of the womb on it magically makes you American.
Yeah.
Like, those are things that naive people came up with and are proving not to be true.
There you go. Yeah. And the thing with this is, it's really interesting because I'm trying to remember where I was going to go with this. Oh, that was it. You're not alone in your feeling of America wanting to just be America. We brought up Japan. Japan really just wants to stay as Japan. They really, especially right now, I'm not trying to get political here, but right now especially, they are very, very, very focused on keeping Japan full of Japanese people and not allowing so many people who are immigrating or visiting there to stay there. They want just that culture to be that culture. And I think that's fine. Like, honestly, and same thing with Mexico. They're the same exact way. And same thing with, there's a lot of people in Britain, especially, that just want British people to be British, and that's it. Same thing with Ireland. Same thing with a lot of countries out there. They just want their culture to be their culture. We're cool with visitors. We're cool with people staying here for a little while. But if you're not willing to assimilate into the culture and change your ways, then you're going to be met with resistance, not of a forceful or violent nature, but of a certain nature where there is resistance to your lack of assimilation. It's an interest. I was not expecting to talk about this, but it's something to ponder of, and it's something that's relevant and of notoriety nowadays, especially.
Yeah. And this is why I think I chose classical pieces to analyze too, because it's just, I've been thinking a lot about the West. And I used to be kind of like a squishy liberal kind of a thing.
No.
Like, where
I feel like the beard has sucked all that out of you.
Where I was just like, all people are the same everywhere. And Western values are just these abstract principles that anyone can grab onto. They're not rooted in any particular people group. And, you're an American just because you popped out the womb on American soil. The soil's magic like that. It makes you American.
Soil's magic like that.
It makes you American just by being born on it. I used to think that way.
Yeah.
And the problem is none of that's true. And
we've seen the result of it not being true as well.
Yeah.
Our culture's gotten worse. There's more racial tension, just in general.
Yeah, you can see this all over. It's demographic change causes cultural change, which causes nations to, at a certain point, stop being the nations they were, and they become new nations. And this is one of those things that I think the West has to reckon with, because we've been sort of brought up to think that these ideas are racist and xenophobic and bigoted and harmful and all this and that. But this is how humanity has existed for thousands of years.
Thousands. And sometimes natural stuff will happen, obviously. Like, for example, the Mexico example or the Central and South American example. Those cultures were born out of that the mixing and that kind of thing. It was born out of that. And with time, that'll happen. But people want to prevent something like that happening in other countries that have already been proven, like, hey, this works here. We're going to keep it this way. Because if it changes, it could change for the worse, basically. But anyway, continue on.
Yeah, so those things, like the idea of nations are the people that make up the nations has been true for as long as humanity has existed. And like ethnic differences are ordained by God. Like that's something that we don't really talk about very much, because in Christianity is sort of the great unifier. There is, Paul writes, there is no Jew, there's no Greek, there's no male, no female, no slave, no free, no Scythian, no barbarian. It being in Christ, we're all who are in Christ are one in Christ. So Christianity is the great unifier. But that fact sometimes obscures the fact that ethnic differences aren't actually a bad thing, that God actually ordained it to be so, because we were all unified as one human race when we were building Babel. And then God scattered people according to their different languages. And from that scattering based on language is where the nations of the earth came from. So the reason why we have different nations of people on this earth is because God made us that way. He saw us how we were unified, said, that's dangerous. That's dangerous for a fallen people to be that unified. And so he broke us apart into different nations. And that's the thing, is Christ is the great unifier. But that union only works for regenerated people. That doesn't work for unbelievers. You can't take those same principles of everyone's one and apply that to the secular world. It just doesn't work.
That's a really good point. I never thought of it that way. Because there is definitely, and we've talked about it on the podcast before, but there's definitely things you see in this world where people are trying to, unify, unity, become one, that kind of thing. But it has the worst intentions possible in the guise of we're all one together and that's our strength. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's backwards versus the intended design, which is with God.
One thing too is the voices strongly calling for, all peoples to be one, and borders to disappear, and nations and ethnicities to blend together.
But under what goal?
Voices calling for that are calling for that because they want to be in charge of a new unified world. They want to control people. They want to remake humanity in their own vision so that they can rule over us.
Yeah. And there's also the factor of, if it worked in Babel, why can't it work again? And I like how you described it, is God said, yes, this is a little too much for a fallen people. Because he does have an intended design, especially if you read Revelation in the end and the new earth and that kind of thing. But you're unified under Christ, under us being his bride, that kind of thing. And it's interesting because I bring up the example of the Friday night Bible study I go to, and you've attended too. It's a very different cultural experience. Like, I'm not a Mexican guy. My skin kind of looks like it because I've been in the sun a lot in my life. But the point is, I joke, by the way. I joke I'm a Ritz cracker instead of a regular cracker. Anyway, if we don't have Christ, like, what are we really there for? You know, like, it's different cultural boundaries, and you can still go and experience cultures and visit countries and enjoy their food and all that great stuff and their history and heritage just fine. But when you're actually together and you're different and you're unified under Christ, it's a different experience. Like, it's also cool because it's kind of like going to a different church. It's a different flavor, or at least that's supposed to be the way. It's a different flavor of Christianity, or a different flavor of the Holy Spirit and how people act. It's like personalities, is how I think I've heard Thad describe it as. Like, if you go to a church, they shouldn't be copying each other. They should be unique in their purpose, unique in themselves, but still unified under one body. It's just really interesting when you think about it. But I think I'm going to put a stop to that discussion there, and let's go on to your second pick, David, because it's funny we brought up Americana and Western, and the West is the best because, well, my theme is, we'll get into it, but it has to do with Western civilization as well. So was there I'll give you one more thing, was there anything you wanted to close that topic out with? And then we can go into your second choice, which is your second instrumental song.
No, I think I pretty much said everything I need to. That
whole discussion was kind of like how I feel about Ballad number 1 in general. Like, just different. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the next one. What is the next one, David?
All right, the next one is Beethoven's Symphony Number 5, First Movement.
Yeah.
So this one's a pretty
famous.
Pretty famous. Like, you've probably heard the da 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 da. So, but this one for me is like, I've always been attracted to music from the Romantic period, and also certain later composers who were very heavily influenced by the Romantic period. So Beethoven kind of basically kicked off the Romantic period himself. So I think, and this piece in particular is kind of like pretty emblematic of his style as well. It's not the most iconic work of his, I would say, but I was tempted to do the fourth movement of the Ninth Symphony, which is probably the most iconic piece of orchestral music ever made. But also it's 23 minutes long.
Oh, whoa!
So I was like, I'll keep all my picks under 10 minutes.
What was your first experience listening to this? Do you remember at all? Like, as a kid or your family? You said your mother like exposed you to this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really remember. I don't really remember what my first experience listening to this was. But
what do you feel when you listen to it now?
Yeah, let's
go with that.
Yeah, this is just this is one of those things that it kind of like it's different, and it's kind of the same thing with the Chopin piece. It's almost kind of got a narrative feel to it, like it could be a movie soundtrack almost. It's not it doesn't encompass the same range of emotions as the other one does, but I do believe that it has kind of like a narrative quality to it.
Yeah. It feels like a story.
Yeah.
Versus like the other one, which is kind of like an example of a pseudo journey, but it's not really telling a story. It's more of like a range of emotions, which is, I think, what Ballad number 1 kind of communicates. This is more like, this is a story we're telling.
Mm-hmm.
Is what Beethoven's trying to get across.
Yeah. And so this one dates to the early 1800s, like I think
it's like the 1830s.
No, it's earlier than that. I think this was completed around 1804, something like that, and then first performed in like 1808, I believe.
Wow. Dang.
So yeah, this is I think Beethoven when it was in his 30s when he composed this. And what the inspiration for this is kind of up to debate, because this is sometimes known as the Fate Symphony, and the main theme or the main motif, that da 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 da, and that's repeated multiple times throughout, is often described as fate knocking on the door. But there's also some dispute as to whether or not that was actually Beethoven's intention in creating this or not.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that's like, we don't really know what was going through his head when he made this, but over time, yeah, this has been historically associated with the idea of fate, and the main motif is consistently described as fate knocking at the door. Yeah, so this is, and to me, it's kind of like, I feel like I get that from this. I don't know if that was his intention or not, but I feel like I get that from this.
Yeah.
Like, like when I listen to this, I feel like the weight of history, the weight of all those who came before, the possibilities of all the future. It's like, it feels like when you're listening to this, like you're on the crux of a transformational event almost. And I think it's really, really a great piece for the time that we live in too, because we are living through history right now. Like, history is being made. Like, when we're old and gray and telling our grandkids about stuff, like about the stuff that we experienced during this time period, these things will be in history books. So there's, like, we get kind of wrapped up in, the various ins and outs of our lives, right? And we kind of we tend to be blind to the significance of our individual actions. But the truth is we're living in a very consequential time. And honestly, it's time for us as a nation, it's time for us as Christians to wake up to that and play our part in it. Yeah.
Play our part in this orchestra.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting this is your second pick, because my second pick is similar to that theme as well, in the sense of living through the time. But we'll get to that. I think in terms of Beethoven's Fifth, I've heard it before in my life many a time. I think it might be one of the most famous, if not the most famous, bits of instrumental orchestra music pieces
I would say
in Western civilization, just modern culture-wise.
Like I said, I would say the Ninth Symphony. Fourth movement.
How does that one sound?
Is more iconic, but that's 23 minutes long.
Yeah.
The Ninth Symphony, the fourth movement, the fourth movement of the Ninth Symphony is Ode to Joy.
Oh, okay. How does it go? This one goes dun 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 dun, and the Ode to Joy goes.
Da, 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 da.
Oh, the freaking Peggle music. Yeah. I don't know why that's where my brain goes. Video games. But anyway, Beethoven's Fifth. I remember my mom showing us like classical music when I was like really little. Like there was like an afternoon we just sat down, I think, for school one time because I was homeschooled, and we listened to classical music. And it was like just a cool thing to do for the day, for school. And, it's not the only thing we did, obviously. We still had to do our math and English and history, blah, blah, blah. But this was like our history portion, I would say. And I remember that. And then I remember, I think, Angie playing classical music a lot in her room, and we would be walking by and hear it playing. But Fantasia 2000, for me, is where I would really tie this experience in Beethoven's Fifth to, because it's the opening short. For those who aren't aware, Fantasia is a Disney-produced and developed anthology movie, originally released in 1940, and then they did a version in the year 2000. And that's the one I grew up with, along with the 1940 version. But the 2000 one has there's a bunch of short animated films put into classical music or different kinds of music. And Beethoven's Fifth is the first one about some story about butterflies or whatever. It's very surreal. And it's beautifully animated. It's a cartoon anthology movie. But it's dope because it exposes kids to classical music like this. And there's many of example in it. And I think it's just really cool. In fact, I think the next one is also in Fantasia as well. But of your picks here. But that's my experience with this song, as well as just hearing it over and over and having it be so overplayed in our culture, I would say. But I think kind of going back to the descriptor, the word I'd use for the last one would be powerful. This one is more, I mean, it is also powerful, but I think the way I would describe this piece of instrumental orchestra would be, it kind of assaults the senses, obviously. I think that's the first thing that stands out to me. And then the second thing is, it kind of lulls you into not a sense of peace, but a sense of okay, we're doing this now. We're going through the motions, and then, we're back up. Things are happening. It's like you said, it's like a story that is being told. And then it ends with such a great bombastic end. Really cool stuff. So, but I think that's all I really got. I can't attend to the style or the technique or whatever, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
And,
this is
this is pretty big brain stuff as well, for the kids out there. If you listen to classical music, I think you should at least take a deep dive into it at least one day out of your life, because there's a lot you can pull out of it, and a lot of ear protein, I would say.
Yeah. And this is one of those things that's you find it everywhere because it's so foundational to Western music in general. Like I said, I think this doesn't take the top spot for most iconic orchestral music ever recorded, but it's pretty up there.
Yeah. If not one, it's two. It's pretty up there.
It's pretty up there. It's one of the recordings featured on the disc on the Voyager probe. And weirdly enough, it makes a great disco song.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's right.
Yeah, it's just a fantastically composed piece of music. And it's a little more, it's not as iconic as the Ninth Symphony. It's a little more accessible. It's not 23 minutes long.
That's true.
This is only about six or 7 minutes long.
Yeah. And it feels like it goes on longer than that, honestly. But maybe, I would say in a good way. It's good stuff. I like it. So what's your next one, David?
All right, so my next one is Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor.
Oh, Bach did this?
Yes.
I thought it was like unknown what artist did this.
Okay, well.
Oh, the version we listened to, nobody knows.
No. The YouTube video I sent you.
Yeah.
Why it says unknown, he's talking about the organist.
Okay, whoever orchestrated this piece.
Who played it.
Who played it, yes. Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
Sorry.
so yeah, this piece is very fascinating.
So Toccata and Fugue in D minor.
Yeah, so this piece is very fascinating from a historical perspective. First, I'll kind of break down what this actually means. So it's Toccata and Fugue because it's actually two separate pieces of music. The first part is the Toccata, and then the second part, the longer part of it, is the Fugue. And so just some background information. A Toccata is a short, expressive instrumental piece, usually designed for the instrumentalist to show off their skills, kind of a thing. So this piece begins with a short toccata, which is very expressive all over the place, gives the organist a chance to kind of stretch their legs a little bit, so to speak, to show their stuff. And then a fugue, which is the second portion, but is the longer chunk of this, is a specific kind of composition that involves parallel voices stacked together to create the harmony instead of being chordal. So most music is based on the combination of chords and melody. So chord is 3 or more notes played at once. And what notes are played together determines the quality of the chord. And so most music is built has a chordal approach to it. So you'll have an instrument or various instruments that form a sort of chordal base for the music, and then you'll have underneath that you'll have the bass line, and over the top of that you'll have the melody, whether it be an instrumental melody or a vocal melody. A fugue is much different. A fugue is independent melody lines all stacked on top of each other. And so the harmony that results is from the interplay of those independent melody lines as opposed to being just chords with a melody on top of them. Oh, and Bach actually was the innovator of the fugue form. So that fugues are kind of his bread and butter. But so to break down this is the toccata is a short expressive opening, and then the fugue is the main body of the piece, which is an ever-evolving set of independent melody lines that are stacked on top of each other. And so as far as the history of this piece too, specifically, it's very, very fascinating because this is attributed to Bach, but there's also there's a little bit of doubt there because this piece was basically unknown for the first century of its existence.
Whoa, really?
And that's, I think, partially due to Bach himself was not very popular in his lifetime. Obviously, he was able to make a living as a musician, but he wasn't like the rock star of his day by any stretch of the imagination, whereas Chopin was absolutely a rock star of his day. Like, And Beethoven was to a certain degree, but not to the same degree that Chopin was. Like Chopin was really like the first true musical celebrity superstar, or one of the first, I should say.
Chopin was the Taylor Swift to Beethoven's Justin Bieber.
But yeah, anyway, over here in Bachland, though, Bach was not a superstar.
Never mind.
he obviously made his living doing music.
Yeah.
But he wasn't like a celebrity by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, during his lifetime, some of his sons were actually more popular and well-liked than he was.
Really? Dang.
But after a certain point, there was what's called the Bach revival, led by the composer Felix Mendelssohn.
I've heard that name actually.
And so the interest in Bach's music actually didn't really become a thing until after he was already dead. And so I think that allowed many of his compositions to just slip through the cracks. And this is one of them. It was basically unknown for the first century of its existence. And somebody just happened to discover a manuscript of it, and this piece was almost lost to time, basically.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Like someone just happened to discover a manuscript of it,
dude,
and preserved it. And then for the next century of its existence, it was performed. It was regarded as it was part of the canon, but it wasn't the cream of the crop, as Macho Man would say. And then fast forward to the 3rd century of its existence, the modern day, basically, you have its inclusion on Fantasia. You have its inclusion in a couple of other things that really kind of took it from being just whatever to being the most well-recognized organ piece ever. So it's crazy. It goes from just being completely unknown to 300 years later being the cream of the crop as far as organ compositions are concerned. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, I went back and I was Googling around and I found that this was in Fantasia. I was like, wait, what part and which one? It was in the original, and it was the opening number they played. And I was like, what? And so I went back, and it's totally different than this version on the organ. Still, of course, the same piece, but it's just so different in comparison. And I probably wouldn't have recognized it anyway. But as I was listening to it, I'm like, this could fit a Fantasia, because I just got done listening to Beethoven's Fifth. And sure enough, whoop-de-doo, 1940, they used it, and they played it on the film. So it's really interesting. And it's funny, if you do go back to the original Fantasia from 1940, it's basically filmed and portrayed and framed as if you're going to a live concert. And then it has some cartoons that play during that. So very interesting thing. And it's cool how that kind of helped shoot this piece into more notoriety as well. So, but other than that, I don't really have much to say about this piece. It's far more enjoyable, I think, than, I don't know if enjoyable is the right word. It's much more of an easy listen to, because for me personally, because of the organ piece. So I really enjoy the organ. Is chef's kiss. It's beautiful. Same thing with listening to them 90s flutes, David. The organ is just so beautiful. But yeah, I think Toccata and Fugue,
Mhm.
the stuff, Bach had it made, man. Like, he was thinking, I don't know. This is also an interesting thing I was going to bring up earlier. Glad I remembered, is when you listen to instrumental music in general, but I think specifically classical. For example, like here's the thing. I think it's way harder to analyze it than other forms of media. For example, if you listen to a normal song, you have lyrics that you could pull from and then find the artist's intent. It's much easier to do that than an instrumental. You look at a movie, you not only have the writings or the artist's intent that way of the writings and the dialogue and blah, 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 but you also have the framing of the camera, the coloring, the editing. There's so many different aspects you can analyze to kind of figure out what the artist's intent was. And you also have, I mean, you have vehicles. Like, what's the purpose of this? What use does this have? Why does it do it? Why does it form around the car? What's the experience of driving this car with that kind of thing? What's the artist's intent with this vehicle? You look at instrumental music, you look at classical music, it's so much harder, I've realized, to kind of like find that artist's intent in the music itself, specifically with instrumental, because there's not a whole lot I'm used to pulling from. But when you do kind of dive in it, you your imagination is challenged more. And I think it's very commendable when you do listen to classical music for that reason. Maybe that's why they say, encourage like young babies to listen to classical music or something, because it helps with their neural development or whatever. So, but I ain't no expert. Are you gonna make your children, speaking of which, David, are you gonna make your children listen to classical music growing up? Because I think it ain't a bad idea.
I mean, yeah, probably.
Yeah, I just put it on.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you'll even play some.
It's like it's really this is our musical heritage.
Yeah.
We and so I definitely want to transmit that to my own children. Because it's like,
it's where we've been.
Yeah, this is what this kind of stuff is what makes Western music unique.
Mm-hmm.
Because no shade against any other culture's music or whatever, but it's like it's different. Like there's aspects of it that are cool, but it's like it doesn't have the same sort of thing that like Western harmony does. It's a very noticeable thing. Like you listen to Indian music, you listen to Middle Eastern music, a lot of different kinds of music around the world are very they're focused on basically drones so like drones and rhythmic complexity. Indian music is a good example of this. Like polyrhythms, which is basically playing two different rhythms against each other instead of just playing one rhythm or the other rhythm. So you have polyrhythms are kind of intrinsic to Indian classical music, and whereas polyrhythms are not intrinsic to Western classical music. And then also with Indian classical music, it's all about the melody over a drone is usually how, and like it can be complex in its own way, but it's not very harmonically complex.
Yeah.
It's really because we were talking about the difference between chordal music and a fugue. Like chordal music is just you play a bunch of notes at once and then you have your melody on top of that, and then a fugue is like the next step up in complexity from that. You have independent melody lines all being played together that create the harmony. Whereas like Indian classical music is just melody, drone, rhythm. Not to say that there's no depth to it, there's no complexity to it.
Yeah.
But the harmonic complexity that Western music has isn't there. And like no other culture on earth has produced music that has the kind of harmonic complexity and depth that Western music does. And
that's why the West is the best, baby.
Yeah. And that's a thing to pass on.
Yeah.
And I have nothing against because obviously the kind of music that people are influenced by changes over time. And over time, things have shifted into a more electronic, hip-hop, world music sort of sound that a lot of kids are influenced now. And there's nothing wrong with that existing.
Not necessarily.
But the specialness of Western music is in the harmony. And so that's the thing that I want to pass on to subsequent generations. And that's why I think classical music is still important. Because as culture drifts in its own way, the Western canon offers us something to look back to make sure we haven't forgotten where we've come from.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to, and that's the whole thing about why we wanted to talk about this in the first place, is because I think it's important. I'm glad you brought the classical music side of things up, because it's important to let the next generation know about this. I'm not saying we're going to be a big influence on the next generation, but we are an influence to somebody out there. So I think it's important to kind of show why things are important the way they have been for generations, because these are pieces of music that have lasted generations, and there's a reason why. And I think it's just really interesting. And I think it makes me think of like my appreciation for music in general and all the genres. Like I think back to my iPod, I had so many different kinds of music on there. I had rock, I had romance music, not romance music, but like romantically like imbued music. I don't know how to describe it. I'm just trying to think of examples. I had like Christian rock, I had rap, I had goofy stuff, I had instrumental stuff, I had Celtic music. Like there's just so many different genres and so many things you can appreciate out there. And I think that's also another reason why, as a little side note, why you should get a good pair of headphones eventually, like a nice, good $150, $200 pair of headphones, and just put them on and listen. None of this Bluetooth wireless crap, actual cords, baby. And plug them into your laptop or computer or whatever, and just listen to some music. And I really hope and pray that my future children become that way, because that's how I was when I was little, because that's all we had. We didn't have the internet. We had some movies and TV shows we could watch, but then we also had our CDs and cassette tapes, as well as our iPod eventually. We had 1 gigabyte, David. And we had to pick and choose what we wanted on there. Only 121 songs, I believe, I could fit on mine. So, and then I took a 6-minute song off. I could put 2 or 3 2-minute songs on there now. So, but as much as I want to go into my choices, which I still haven't revealed, by the way, I think it's an hour and a half. Yeah, it's almost midnight. We're snarping that midnight fangle, man.
We are indeed.
Yeah, wow, so I think
we'll have to do a part 2.
Yeah, we'll have to do a continuation of this, and I'm gonna try to get somebody else on here as well, because there's one song here specifically that I would like for him to talk about. He wrote some things and sent it to me because he's an expert in this song, I would say. And he's very passionate. So I wonder if he's listening to this, I wonder if he'd be willing to hop on with us, because he's very passionate about that one thing. And here's the thing, David, for the next part of this, I want you Because here's the thing. I'm going to do the 3, like you did your 3. However, I would like you to maybe bring up that one song I wanted you to bring up, that I won't say what it is. It's been aforementioned on the podcast before, but I'm going to let the viewers figure that out.
Okay.
If we could talk about, like, I want to do my 3 songs and maybe like 1 or 2 bonus ones just for the whole group in general. Because I think that would be cool. And you know what? I was talking to somebody else today, and maybe we could do just October was all film. Should November be all music, David?
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, it's so late. I am so tired. Like, as you were doing that last little bit there, I was like trying so hard not to close my eyes and doze off. Like, I was fine watching the movie with Malachi before I got here. But then I got home and I'm like, yeah, I doused 2, I chugged 2 packets of powdered vitamin C. So 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C and then a Mr. Pibb soda. So 40 milligrams of caffeine. And I am going to sleep. So I think it's time to stop burning that midnight oil.
Yeah.
And end it there.
Yeah. I pretty much was testing the limits of my coherence here. Like
you did pretty good.
I was really trying to touch on some big subjects, and
You
just
did.
like my brain was working against me.
Yeah, and then, dude, oh man, especially during that big topic, I was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah. And then like there's a part where I'm like, like I'm just leaning to the side and I'm like, man. So, but hey, God bless you, David. This was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun to talk about this stuff. And go listen to some classical music, ladies and gentlemen. It's some good stuff out there. And before we go, what's an artist you want them to look up? Like, you can look up this, what's his face? The Beethoven, of course. But everybody knows about Beethoven. You also got this Chopin and Bach. But what's some like fun ones as well? More fun ones, I guess.
Let's see. You know who I really love is
yeah, because you wanted to pick. You knew exactly what your 3 picks were. What's some other ones? Like,
you know who I really love is Debussy. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Debussy.
It's D-E. It's his first name is Claude, so that's easy.
Claude Debussy.
I think it's Debussy. Debussy.
No, not Gary Busey. Claude Debussy.
Yeah. Yeah, his music has a very unique character to it. I think his most famous work, I think, is Clair de Lune. But the one I like is actually a real short piece. It's in French. I can't remember what the title is in French, but the title is in French. But translated, it's The Girl with the Flaxen Hair. It's a short piece, but it's a really great piece. Yeah, his music has a very distinct sort of color to it. It's kind of it's different than other classical music because Debussy was very influenced by...
Yeah, Claude Debussy, yeah.
He was very influenced by other, like, world music and jazz to a certain degree. So his... it has a sort of unique color to it. But like I said, despite the influence of other forms of music, it still fits into what I would call the Western classical tradition, but it does have its own unique flavor. So check them out.
Yeah, and that's one reason I love video game music, because there's so much variety and so much of it that and kind of, there's an argument with film too. I remember a political commentator making a comment about classical music and seeing how, in terms of the modern day examples of classical music in quotes, or accelerating instrumental music in general, that whole genre is from film specifically. Like, film music really has been the outlet for composers and orchestras to really express the next generation of this kind of evolution of classical music through film. I mean, you look at like Alvin Silvestri, for example. Great, amazing composer. Did the Back to the Future anthem, as well as a few great other films, as well as Avengers. So there's different themes you can hear that are just very notoriety and still have impact on the culture. And it's cool to see it in film. It's kind of sad it's not like appreciated where music can be separated from film and still have that evolution. But I think it's fine if it has evolved into film because we still have the old stuff as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is I was thinking about when I was listening to these, to kind of refresh myself on them, is like if you're into film music at all, you can see
Yeah.
that the direct lineage from classical music to modern film music. Like it's very much modern film music is kind of carrying on the Western musical tradition.
Yeah, and it's cool because we got back to Fantasia in 1940 is when they were playing that classical stuff in the first one. And I'm thinking of all the films that came out decades after that, like I'm thinking of the Ten Commandments. I'm thinking about Cleopatra. I'm thinking about Ben-Hur. I'm also thinking about the Westerns of that time. Like orchestrated music really went on and carried on and took, I think a lot of it, like come to think of it, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of it took inspiration from the classical stuff that we touched on today even. And that manifested itself into inspirations for those films. It's really interesting. And it's important to remember your heritage and why the West is the best. So let's end it there, David. I really appreciate you staying awake this whole time. Man, all right, let's, sorry, I'm trying not to yawn. But yeah, let's end it there.
All right.
That was fun because I have about another 2 hours worth of notes to go over. So we'll save that for the next podcast. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for indulging us in this discussion of classical music and the Western civilization. And of course, the celebration of Americana. We appreciate you. We even appreciate the Brits. We even appreciate the French. We appreciate you all. The people from Japan, the people from Ireland, and other things we touched upon today. By the way, when you were talking about the Indian music, I tried so hard to resist saying the ding 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 ding. Like I was like just gonna interrupt you with that, but I held off until the end. So all right, well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your time, audience. We really appreciate you. And thank you again for listening to episode 91 of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. Start writing in some things about us as we get closer to episode 100, which will probably be the only episode we do a celebration for. Just spoiler alert. All right, we'll see you later. Have a good one. And remember, when you're balking up the wrong tree, don't forget to sit down with Beethoven and Snarp Fangle on.
Bye-bye now.